Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session. It is Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. It is 9:08 a.m. This meeting is set to go until noon today. We're in Building 1, Room 280. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. Vice Chair Ty Menser joining us via Zoom this morning. Commissioner Gary Edwards to my left, and we also have County Manager Ramiro Chavez in the boardroom, and many staff joining us via Zoom. We'll start our meeting off with Public Health and Social Services Infectious Diseases Update.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Interim Director for Public Health and Social Services. Dr. Abdulmalik and I are going to give you a quick summary on infectious disease update. I'm going to start off with the COVID update. This is the first update for COVID, I believe, since the first week of October. So I wanted to run through some of the numbers with you. And total cases in Thurston County are 59,965. These numbers are all as of November 1st. Unfortunately, the Thurston County deaths since the start of the pandemic are 470. And then 14-day per 100,000 case rate is 88.7 as of November 1st. To give you some perspective, it's been since mid-April that we've had numbers that low for our 14-day per 100,000 case rate. Hospitalizations, this data is as of November 1st. Since the beginning of the pandemic, are 2,900. Yes, is there a question?
Sorry.
No.
Okay, sorry, I thought I heard a question. So since the start of the pandemic, there's 2,953 hospitalizations. Currently, as of November 1st, there's 19 patients admitted in the county hospitals with COVID, and confirmed with COVID. And number on vents are 0. And ICU available capacity is 4 adult beds. Acute bed available capacity is 12 adult beds. I'll go more into that at the end of the COVID update when I talk a little bit about patient bed census. Congregate care outbreaks as of November 2nd. We've had 291 congregate care outbreaks since March 2020. Currently, there are 13 congregate care outbreaks ongoing in the county. The vaccination status, I'm just going to go through some of the percentages instead of the raw numbers of vaccine doses given. The percent of the population initiating the primary series is 75%. The percent of population completing the primary series is 67.9%. The number that are aged 6 months and older is 75.4% that are initiating the primary series. And the percentage of 6 months and older completing the primary series is 68.3%. Then I'm going to, the percent of people receiving any type of booster is 59.2%. And then a new category that we started tracking recently, the percentage of people receiving the bivalent booster age 12 and older is 18.8%. And that's all the vaccination numbers are as of October 31st. A couple items as well. We continue to do vaccine clinics. Today, on November 8th, from 10 to 4, there's a bivalent Pfizer booster clinic for ages 5 and older at the Lacey Fire Station 34. We encourage people to register to get appointments, but however, and that's highly recommended for the appointment. Walk-ins are welcome. The Lacey Fire Station 34 is located at 8407 Silicon Road Southeast in Lacey. Tomorrow on November 9th, there's a bivalent Moderna booster clinic for ages 6 and older at the McLean Black Lake Fire Department. Again, that's ages 6 and older. We encourage pre-registration as well. That location is 125 Delphi Road Northwest, Olympia, Washington. Again, while appointments are welcome. On Thursday, November 10th, there's a bivalent Pfizer booster clinic ages 5 and older at the Unity of Olympia. It's located at 1335 Fern Street Southeast in Olympia, Washington. And then on this Friday, November 11th, Veterans Day, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., there's a bivalent Moderna booster clinic for ages 6 and older at the Tenino VFW Hall. And that is located at 285 Sussex Avenue East in Tenino, Washington. And then we encourage people to go to our website, Thurston County website, for additional clinics beyond this weekend, or they can also call 360-867-2610 for the clinic schedule beyond this weekend, or to get, if they want to get an update. We continue to do testing in the county, and these numbers are all October numbers. We tested in 15 locations in the county. We conducted 4,280 tests in the county as well. Strike teams are available for outbreak testing, and most of those tests that did occur were as part of those strike teams to go look at outbreaks and test for outbreaks. And then again, testing kits are available, and we continue to issue testing kits to the public. People can call 360-867-2610 for test kits. We've given out so far this year, this calendar year, we've given out over 55,000 test kits to the public. As everybody is aware, the governor's emergency proclamation ended at the end of October. While the Secretary of Health has maintained a very few criteria, such as masking in healthcare settings, well, I wanted to point out that part of that requirement with the ending of the emergency proclamation means FEMA funding ends with this ending of the state emergency proclamation, with some exceptions if there's some activities undergoing from the federal emergency that's ongoing. So Health and Human Services still has an emergency issued into 2023, but the state emergency proclamation has ended. One of the waivers for the state emergency proclamation was a waiver for bed capacity. That ended at the end of October. However, St. Pete's Hospital here in Thurston County requested an individual waiver on bed capacity, and that was granted by the Department of Health. And so what that ended up doing was that impacts 55 beds in St. Pete's. It doesn't add 55 beds to their capacity. It means they could maintain those 55 beds that otherwise they would have had to take out of service, because they would have had to, the waiver would have gone away, and then they would have had to adjust their staffing down to the lower bed count. Subject to your questions, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Abdul-Malik for her update.
Good morning, commissioners. We are seeing, as Kurt mentioned, lower transmission rates of COVID-19 at this point in time. What I do want to caution all of you about is that the rates that we're looking at really are for tests performed by CLIA waived entities and CLIA licensed entities. And this doesn't actually include the at-home tests that folks are performing at home.
Doctor,
Doctor.
there's a question.
CLIA tests?
Oh, so CLIA is it's a form of licensure for laboratories. And it relates to the complexity and type of tests that they're able to perform. There are some tests, like the rapid tests for COVID and other rapid tests, for which entities can apply for a waiver of that of the CLIA requirements and be able to perform those tests on site. Those have medical, there has to be some interpretation oversight for those tests, and there's a reporting requirement. At-home tests don't require, of course, any additional licensure, but because there isn't oversight into the process that folks perform at home to perform the tests, those are counted in alignment with federal guidance as suspect positives, rather than being used as part of our formal numbers.
Thank you.
So while it's encouraging, what we're seeing, it is likely an undercount, and we have seen surges in prior winter seasons. So we are staying vigilant. In terms of the currently circulating variants in Washington state, so the sequencing data lags a little bit behind other it just because it takes time to actually get the genetic sequence of the specimens. But so the data that we have is current as of October 15th, being the last day that for which complete sequencing is available. And BA.5 continues to be the dominant strain in Washington state with 78.2% of tested samples having this variant. Other variants, the next two up are BF.7, which is 9.9%, and BQ.1, which is approximately 3%. Looking at the national data, there are additional variants that are increasing kind of at the national level. So BQ.1.1, BF.7, just as we're experiencing, BQ.1 as we're experiencing, and then BA.4.6. The good news is that we're not seeing a safety signal from this, due to the change in variants. So that's good. We haven't seen a significant increase in deaths. Or to date in Washington state for this season, we haven't seen an increase in hospitalizations. So at this point, I do want to remind folks watching that there are bivalent boosters available for folks that are fully vaccinated, and they can access them 2 months after completing a primary vaccination series or 2 months after their most recent monovalent booster. And we also are able to offer and continue to offer those through Thurston County Public Health at multiple sites. I did want to share a little bit about, as the pandemic shifts, the guidance also changes. So in the last few weeks, we are seeing some significant transitions in COVID-19 guidance in Washington state. So I'll start with the key things that are largely staying the same, and that is for folks who are sick or who test positive for COVID-19. The guidance for the general public is a 5-day at-home isolation. So that's a minimum. And in order to end isolation, folks need to be fever-free for 24 hours without use of fever-reducing medications. And they need to be feeling better, having significant improvement in their symptoms. And then further on that day 6 through 10, they should mask when in public, because there's a certain number of folks that even after they meet those clinical criteria, so there are a variety of estimates, many in the general ballpark of about 30%, but there are multiple estimates, may continue to be infectious beyond day 5, even if they feel better. So strongly, so I urge everyone to continue masking on day 6 through day 10. There is a testing, there is a testing protocol. So if after day 5, people test negative on 2 sequential tests, so 24 to 48 hours apart, at that point, the chance of them continuing to be infectious is extremely low, and folks and at that point in time, folks can stop masking within that period, per the latest Washington State Department of Health guideline. Otherwise, if folks test positive, the Washington State Department of Health recommends they continue to mask and isolate at home until they test negative, or until 10 days have passed since symptom onset, or 10 days have passed from date of positive test if asymptomatic. This testing process is not required. So folks who do meet that clinical criteria to end isolation after day 5 can end isolation, provided that they mask day 6 through day 10. This does not include high risk settings where isolation continues to be 10 days from symptom onset. So we're looking at congregate care settings, correctional settings, and other high-risk settings. In some healthcare settings, isolation can be shortened to 7 days with a negative test within 48 hours of ending isolation, kind of following a similar process to that of the general public. That's not masking. So that's the part that's staying. It's fairly complex, but that's the part that's staying largely the same. The big change really is has come with regard to quarantine. So folks who were exposed but haven't developed illness in the past, folks who weren't up to date on vaccine would be required to quarantine at home for 5 days. That is shifting. Where folks are, provided that they remain asymptomatic, are able to, provided they remain asymptomatic and mask for 10 days after their exposure, are not required to quarantine. They should test on day 3 to 5, and if they use a rapid test, they should do the serial testing. So at least 2 tests, 24 to 48 hours apart. In that time frame to ensure that they haven't become infected. So this is a big change, and this is regardless of vaccination status. So lots of movement in a positive direction on COVID. We do, with all of these changes, there is the potential for an increase in case counts and outbreaks, and we continue to monitor that fairly closely. I did want to move on to other respiratory illnesses that are circulating. So in terms of, the CDC has released some information regarding rates of kind of infection rates and transmission rates of influenza, RSV being the 2 big ones in addition to COVID. What we're seeing in Washington State and across the country is an increase in RSV hospitalizations. That's a little bit higher than what we've seen at this point in flu season in times past. And this is particularly pronounced amongst children. Here in Washington State, influenza activity does continue to be low. And in our current season, there have been 3 confirmed influenza-related deaths, and we continue to track that, and we're able to provide technical support for facilities that are so long-term care facilities in particular, where folks are experiencing outbreaks. I do recommend that folks who haven't gotten their influenza shot yet get vaccinated for influenza. The preliminary look from our state and federal partners is that the current influenza vaccine is a good match for what's circulating in the country at this point. Currently, in the highest rates of transmission of influenza within the U.S. are in the Southeast and South Central regions, but we continue to watch. I did want to just give a brief update on monkeypox or MPV. So to date, there have been 627 total cases in Washington State, including 2 identified in Thurston County residents. Overall, there have been 10 hospitalizations and 0 deaths. We continue to be able to offer a Jynneos vaccination to folks who are at high risk of contracting monkeypox and to close contacts of confirmed cases. And to date, Thurston County Public Health has dispensed 283 doses. And so that was a lot of information. And so I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have. Thank you so much, commissioners.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
So there seems to be a little more illness created by the regular flu shot amongst the population. Is that not true? Or just happens to be getting a little more notoriety? What's the deal there? People going in just getting a flu shot and having a couple days of sickness involved with it. What's that about?
So in general, the influenza shot is generally fairly well tolerated. I can definitely, anecdotally, we have heard about some increased in feeling poorly after the bivalent COVID shots, and those have been shown to have a increased immunogenicity. And so that we've tracked. It's definitely still a recommendation for folks to receive the COVID shot, even though folks who receive it may have some side effects as their body mounts an immune response. In terms of the influenza shot itself, anecdotally, we haven't, that hasn't been shared with us, but I will definitely look into it.
Then one other thing on the tests, the in-home tests now, are they more accurate today than they were, say, a year ago? Have they made better testing processes that seem to work better? Or are they like 70% or 90%? What are they when accuracy?
So there are a number. So the FDA has specific guidelines before they approve a test in terms of accuracy, but it does vary by test. What we have been seeing is that the best results are when folks use the tests as approved by the FDA, which is why there's a move from taking just one rapid test to taking serial tests, per the FDA approval, just to ensure that you're getting the actual, just to ensure that the test is as accurate as the, it's ensuring accuracy based on how the test was approved. I can look into I can definitely pull some of the specifics based on the FDA data and share that with you for the most common tests.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mensah, questions?
Madam Chair, I apologize. I'm not going to make it today, and I'm going to excuse myself at this point, and I won't be attending the rest of today's proceedings. So apologize for that, but I'm just not going to make it today. Thank you.
Thank you. No need to apologize, sir. Go ahead, Commissioner, County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular update, the board has requested to have once a month. Mm-hmm. So this afternoon, I will be recommended this update should be given to the Board of Health. I think it's the most appropriate setting to have that, since the 3 commissioners among the other 4 members may be benefiting at that venue as opposed to the agenda setting. Mm. So that will be the recommendation that I will be making this afternoon from the Board of Health, and we'll see how the Board of Health weighs on that. Just to give you a heads up.
Okay, thank you. Next is homeless strategies.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. Just a brief update for you today. The Hazardous Weather Task Force convened kind of an emergency conversation last week to discuss how we move forward when we have heavy rains that would be impacting those that live in encampments. And we developed a few strategies, which is a newer aspect of Hazardous Weather Task Force. So consider that a successful step forward in continually growing the hazardous weather task force response with regards to extreme weather conditions for those experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So at this time, we have no hazardous weather events. We are monitoring the weather, of course, as we move forward. At this time, we don't hit the thresholds for calling a hazardous weather event for this week, although the temperatures are quite cold. We also are having engaging conversations with our right-of-way partners, with the state and our local jurisdictional staff members and providers, coming up with some creative ways to be addressing those who are living in the right-of-ways while we wait for some permanent projects to come online, such as tiny home village or a hotel. We're having discussions with our partners at Commerce on how we can be creative. And we don't have any projects identified as of yet, but those conversations are happening twice weekly. And as soon as we have an update, I will absolutely be glad to update the commissioner. And then we have the Regional Housing Council this week. We only have one Regional Housing Council meeting in both November and in December. This week's meeting will be the longer meeting. Typically, the second Wednesday of the month, Regional Housing Council is only 1 hour. This will be the longer meeting. Therefore, we will be taking public comment. If any Thurston County residents would like to attend or to sign up for public comment, you can go to Google and put in Thurston County Regional Housing Council. There'll be a link for registering for attendance at that meeting. Other than that, that's what I have for you today for my update.
Thank you, Keely. Questions, Commissioner?
No questions, thank you.
So at the previous RHC meeting, there was a conversation about, and I remember this time, Keely, there was a conversation about stipends towards some of our advisory boards within it that would be paid directly from the funds that the RHC puts out. And I would like to bring this as a conversation topic for a future meeting. I think that's a conversation that the full board needs to have because I need to know kind of how the board feels about that, and just have that conversation. Keely, did I cover it correctly?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Mejia. We are just having conversations of, we are having expectations that on our advisory boards, we would have members, subject matter experts and members of those advisory boards that may have lived experience of homelessness. So we would like to have a conversation on how we compensate them for their time on those advisory boards.
Thank you. Okay. County Manager?
Yeah, I would like to provide an update related to the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding with Commerce, related to the purchase of a hotel. Within the whole process, I think I believe they have been keeping up to date on the board on that effort. So I'm here to let you know we're getting closer to signing this MOU that includes the purchase of the Days Inn hotel and in the Hawkesbury area in Lacey. So this has been a long journey. The purchase of the hotel is going to be directly negotiated with Lehigh. Lehigh is going to be the organization who's going to be purchasing this hotel. The Lacey City Council will be briefed this Thursday. A news release that we have been working between the two jurisdictions will be issued right after that. And I believe there is already a community meeting to outline this project scheduled for November 16th, I believe. Keely, correct me with the date or Tom. So I just want to bring you this up to date. This particular effort is getting to that point. And I feel confident at this point that I can release to you what the actual location of this hotel is. And this is the one in Hawkesbury, at the Days Inn. This includes $50 million to acquire the property. and as well as an additional $5 million for an immediate renovation of that facility to accommodate the intended purpose. I will bring an AIS on November 22nd for your consideration to authorize the county manager to sign this MOU. And this, do you like to provide additional update, Tom, Kelly, on this?
No, that's, I don't have anything extra, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
You made mention of 2 jurisdictions.
Yeah, thank you. It's the city of Lacey, the county, and Commerce. Those are the
So
3
there are
parties.
3 jurisdictions involved.
I was meant 2 local jurisdictions.
2 locals, okay. And the money is coming from,
The state.
and so we will not be saddled with some ownership of some building.
No, and that was the intent of the avoiding any jurisdiction to be the owners of a facility, because
Right.
as I briefly stated to the board in the past, local governments are lousy landlords,
Lousy landlords, yeah.
with all due respect.
Well, I'll agree with you. Thank you.
Okay, so next is a review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of November 8th, 2022. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards and approval of the Tuesday, November 8th, 2022 agenda. And are there minutes to be approved?
I'd like to highlight with the commissioners that I asked the question to our attorney whether the board needs to approve those minutes, just to be consistent whether approving or not those minutes and any other briefings. So there is not a requirement for you to approve those minutes. And so just to be consistent in any other minutes that we produce and any other briefings that you have, since you passed the new resolutions that all on our regular meetings, I think this step is just to be consistent on managing the meeting minutes. And that has been a change. So I'll be more than happy to share the perspective from our legal counsel, which that has been coordinated with MRSC, and MRSC has provided a perspective of that as well.
Questions on that?
Do you have specific, I don't know, written direction from either our legal advisor about the fact that we don't need to keep
Yes, sir.
minutes, or MRSC?
Yeah, I'm reading the MRSC perspectives even as we speak. I can share that email with the board.
Okay.
if you like.
And when you say we don't need to approve, but we still need to retain and keep those minutes?
No, the minutes are available upon request, as stated, in any time. And as you may recall, early in the year, we made an effort and shifted the system in a way that we are pretty much up to date on every single minutes the board has. So anytime any citizens would like to get a written copy of the board briefings minutes, we'll make those available.
Okay, it's just that we're not going through the official
Right.
approval process during our weekly meeting.
Yeah, it's just to be consistent with the recent ordinance that you passed.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to see that.
Yeah, I'll share that with you.
Okay, so moving on, we do have a presentation today, and it's Veterans Day Proclamation.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, is a proclamation where you highlight and proclaim November 11th Veterans Day in Thurston County. And this is an opportunity for you to highlight the service and sacrifice all the veterans have given to our country. There will be in attendance a couple of veterans for you to be part of that proclamation. But also just to give you up to date, parallel to this, the county has joined a National Association of County Officials. The NACO is a statewide, nationwide operation. What we call is the Operation Greenlight. we're on November 11th, we'll be lighting the county buildings, the courthouse, as well as, I believe, other buildings green. We're not going to be changing all the lights green, but at least we're going to be highlighting a couple of lights in green, and that is a national effort to highlight the Veterans Day in support of military veterans and across the nation. So today, you will have the opportunity to highlight through your proclamation, and on Friday, which is observance of Veterans Day, we'll light green a couple of county business buildings.
Questions?
No questions.
Okay, moving on to an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
I don't have any updates. To follow up, yes, maybe one. And I wasn't clear on, and it was related to, can you remember his name? Mr. Help me up with the last name on the Patterson Lake. Testimony, Hartbridge.
1 second.
I apologize.
Brett Townbridge.
Cambridge, thank you. He made I believe, a comment listening to who has ownership of the land on their lakes.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be ready to provide a resource from the Department of the Washington State Department of Natural Resources, DNR, which is specifically outlines ownership on all the aquatic lands in the state. So the bottom line is, the state owns the water as well as the property underneath the lakes. The only private property owners is on the shorelines. And that clearly is stated in here. I will address that this afternoon, and I will be providing a copy if he comes this afternoon on this particular statement. The state has gone through this process assessing the ownership of all the water bodies in the state, which includes, is well versed on this, and certainly I can share that with the board. But that is the conclusion. I believe the question was raised last week. But correct me if I'm tracking this in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that was the main question. Do you have any follow-up?
Yeah, who does, you said the state, but is it DNR,
Yeah,
is it ecology?
Natural resources.
Okay, it's controlled by natural
Yeah,
resources.
and it's right here. I will share this with you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I will follow up on that. I will not be elaborating this, but the bottom line is the state owns the land underneath the waters.
Okay.
So if I may, I don't believe there is a need to go through a legal opinion in the county because the state has already made that determination. And I think that we can close the loop on that.
Okay. We have consent items A through E. First off, 3A, resolution adopting public works policy 022 regarding organization of the county road system.
If I may, Madam Chair, can go items 3A, B, C, and D. Those are similar in nature. Those are policies. The public work is asking the board to approve via an actual resolution. The requirements for the board to take a legislative action to have those policies approved. It is requirements outlined in the Washington Administrative Code. And also is a requirement part of the County Road Administration Board for us to receive the certificate of good practice every year. So item 3A is a policy related to the organization of the county road system. Item 3B is regarding the complaint handling the general public and others. Item 3C is related to approval of work with other public agencies in the county. And item 3D is related to the preservation of survey monuments in the county's right of way. So unless you have any questions, Scott Lindblom's here to answer the questions.
Okay,
Yes, good morning, Commissioner. Scott Lindblom, County Engineer, and thank you for that summary, County Manager. A couple things I would just like to add that might help the understanding of this is approval of these resolutions simply adopts existing public works policies. These are policies we already have in place and are using currently. Approving these resolutions will not result in any change to how public works serves our community or how we operate. And again, as the county manager noted, these requirements in the WAC are very prescriptive in nature. So there's not a lot of leeway for us to not do these and still receive our certificate of good practice, which is important for us to continue to receive our approximately $5 million per year gas tax allocation. So I'd be open to any questions you might have.
questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
No questions for me, Scott, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Moving to item E, this is approved contract for legal services.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up to, I believe, the executive session you had last Tuesday related to an appeal of the natural resources permit to the for a forest practice permit related to Summit Lake. So this particular contract is for you to authorize the firm of Ziot's Chestnut to serve as legal counsel and represent the county versus the Department of Natural Resources. This is a fee base with a maximum of $100,000 as the board authorized. I don't think we can get to that point. So this is the next step in following up the direction the board provided last week.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I thought that was $10,000 we talked about.
I don't believe
That's,
so.
it was 100.
I believe so. Put that.
Maybe that was gonna be the first step, okay.
I think that was the ceiling, the board. That's my understanding, but if you recall something different, certainly we can.
Just,
I don't remember the number quite specifically.
Do you have the meeting notes?
It was an executive session.
Yeah, but it was after the fact. They provides a direction.
We didn't provide a ceiling in the motion.
we did not.
I don't remember providing a ceiling.
I don't remember
Well, my
myself.
understanding is I believe the board was discussing that amount, so this is ceiling. And since you would like to have a dollar amount every time that you approve a contract, I believe that was the case. $10,000 will not do.
But we're gonna have new information come back to us before we pay that out, right?
So this is the first step to hire their attorney in the contract. And the next step, I will bring that attorney to have an executive session with you to give you the next steps. And at that point, it's gives you that. So I'm limping a little bit because I was not part of that executive session
That's right,
last week.
that's right.
So my apologies.
We don't have them saved to the shared drive yet, Randy doesn't have them there yet.
Okay. Moving on to department items, do we know if Vice Chair Menser will be here?
No, he's not gonna be here. He excused himself for the whole day, so that's one of the items that I have for you. Items 4A and 4B, just to give a perspective, there is payments related to the atrium. Item 4A, that's for the week of October 3rd, 2022, of $478. That's related to IT-related activities. And for the October 10th, 2022 on page 25 is $218.18 expenditure related to the atrium. So
That would be about, what, total of $600 and some dollars, A and B?
on both.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead with it, and I can, if I had to, I'd pay that out of my pocket. And that's what I'm worried about here is things that go on if you wanna keep government
Well,
moving.
I was just gonna say, those two items, can we remove those two items specifically and move them to November twenty-second?
We can, that's what.
Oh, okay, if it doesn't cause a problem.
No, I mean, we can
Okay,
go back to
good,
November
that'd be
22nd.
better.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Thank you.
I just want to give you that.
thank you.
So if we can move the items to November twenty-second.
So on November 22nd, you probably see.
Like four items in relation to this.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then, the reason we're not doing it for November 15th for the public, and we'll be addressing this is, we will all be at a conference, and so therefore we will not be here. We will be at the WASAC, Washington State Association of County Leaders Conference. And
I think it's Renton.
That's an
Renton.
Annual conference.
conference taking place in Kent.
Yeah, and there's an opportunity for the Board of County Commissioners to have, you're really interacting with your seatmates across the state. And you've heard from Eric Johnson, the Executive Director of WASAC. The attendance is going to be a little bit north of 300, which is a good attendance. So it's going to be good.
I enjoyed it last year. It was a good conference. Okay, moving on to item 5, which will now be 4A. Set public hearings for 2023 midterm budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a yearly action the board is considered taking. And this is for you to consider setting the public hearings for December 5th and December 6th. And those are related to, for you to receive public testimony on the proposed 2023 midterm budget update. There is a specific schedule for the public hearing on December 5th as well as on December 6th. And again, this is, there is not really an option at this point as to when those public hearings should occur because we need to have those on the first week in December as we have exercised this requirement over the last few years. Nicole is going to walk you through with a little more detail. Nicole.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. As Romero stated, item 4A and 4B are referring to the public hearing to set that for the expense budget as well as outlining the revenue sources for the 2023 midterm budget. On December 5th, we will talk with Law and Justice, General Government, Capital Improvement Plan, as well as open up for comments. On December 6th, we will speak with Transportation and Environment and Land Use, Health and Human Services. We'll speak to the revenue and then open up for comments. If there's any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions at this point, thank you.
No questions for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. So,
She already covered 4B.
Yeah.
Is the board okay with that?
yeah. Community planning and economic development, item 6, now 5A. Approve a contract with Mall, Foster, and Alonji, Inc.
That's my guess. This is follow-up to the a couple options the board took early in the year in approving the Thurston County docketing list. You included an item called the CPA-8, which is the county-wide study for industrial lands. Following to that decision, the board authorized the department to go through a request for proposals to secure the services of a consultant that can help us to go through this process and meet the requirements in the direction of the board. That process has been concluded, and the department is recommended for the board to approve a contract with Mall Foster and Alonji Incorporated, and for an amount of $84,810, and authorize the director of CPA to sign the agreement. This is already included in the budget in 2022, and this is the next step in the process following the board's direction. Andrew?
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Bond here with Community Planning. The County Manager summary was excellent. I'm here for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner
No,
Edwards?
no questions.
No questions from me. Moving to item 6B, set a public hearing for Development Code Docket Item 8-22, Boundary Line Adjustment Code Amendment, and this is a follow-up from a briefing we had.
Yeah, that is correct, Madam Chair. The Planning Commission reviewed this item on a work session back in August 17, 2022. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on September 21st, 2022. In following that public hearing, the Planning Commission voted 7-2 to recommend approval of the boundary line adjustment for the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners had a briefing on October 19th as well as on October 25th, where the board provided direction to bring an AIS to set the public hearing before you consider taking a final action on this particular amendment. And Andrew's here to answer any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
No questions from me, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Emergency Services, item 7A, contract for FFY22 Homeland Security Grant Number E23-113.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe you heard.
Sorry, I just thought for a change the background screen. He's so on top of it.
From public health to
Yeah.
emergency services. Since Ben Miller Todd is on vacation, in a honeymoon actually, that's good. So I believe you heard this item. This is related to the federal fiscal year 2022, the Homeland Security Grant provides funding for implement investments that build and sustain and deliver the core capabilities essential to achieve the national preparedness goal in the nation. Thurston County, again, Emergency Management is the coordinating agency with Homeland Security Region 3, which includes the cities and tribes and the counties of Grace Harbor, Lewis, Mason, Pacific, and Thurston counties. This dollar amount is for $233,948. The performance of this contract is from September 1st, 2022 through July 31st, 2025. And this particular grant was already expected and is included on the current budget allocation. Kurt?
Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services, County Manager gave a great summary. I don't have anything further to add.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions, thank you.
I appreciate your due diligence, Kurt.
Johnny on the spot.
Okay, moving on to other item, 7B, contract for SFY22-23 State Individual Assistance Grant Number D23-014.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really a grant they're going to be receiving from the state to help the property owners who were faced the flooding issues really in December 2021 through January 2022. And this is related to an engrossed substitute Senate Bill 5693 that the legislature passed to help on extreme weather events. So this is an opportunity for those individuals affected by those floodings to provide for the county to receive the money from the state and for us to provide a grant to them. There is a maximum of for household appliances replacement that is limited to $6,400, and for household income repairs is limited for $37,900 per household. This is a long-awaited really help. They will be in addition to the first response that we provided to the citizens who were affected by the floods early in the year. Kurt?
Yeah, Kurt Harden again, Director of Emergency Services. Great summary. And then I wanted to, there's a question last week about a communication outreach. And so I wanted to just go through a quick summary of the outreach plan that Emergency Management will be conducting. When the state contacted the emergency management office here in Thurston County, we reached out and they received 20 responses of unmet needs from citizens that were still struggling to repair their homes or replace damaged household items. So based on that, the contract is based on those 20 individuals receiving the grant. However, if there's any funding left over, it's in a tiered process. They're going to use social media, news release, website posts, and email to citizens that had previously submitted preliminary damage but had not responded or indicated they had no damages as of July. We're going to reach out to them and communicate directly with those 20 individuals. If funding's left over, we'll do a second tier level where we will reach out and see if there's any other unmet needs from that incident that took place from December 2021 to January 2022. And then we're going to partner up with United Way to reach out to the citizens as well. So while emergency management will be administering the grant, it will be United Way who will actually be doing the outreach and working with the citizens and with the people who were impacted.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions, thank you.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Public Health and Social Services, item 8A, contract with Low Income Housing Institute for $1,741,380 and regionally pulled SHB 1406 funds for construction of the 2828 Martin Way Phase 2 Affordable Housing Project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Low Income Housing Institute Lehigh intends to break ground on the 2028 Martin Way Phase 2, as you stated, in January of 2023. This is a project that will bring 63 unit multifamily rental for serving homeless seniors. Over the last year, really, Lehigh saw that perhaps there's going to be a gap in funding related to the construction, to the extent that this particular matter was discussed at the August 25th, 2021 of the Regional Housing Council. Well, the Regional Housing Council authorized the funding contingent that Lehigh will demonstrate there is a need and they will have access just about every single other source before they can get to this point. That has been done, I believe. Lehigh has done an excellent job in securing just about every single possible funding source. So this particular proposal is for the board to approve this contract for the dollar amount stated by the chair. And the Senate bill, the Senate House Substitute House Bill 1406 funds, as we call it, is really a pooling of revenue sources from across the Thurston County region, which includes Thurston County, the City of Olympia, City of Lacey, and City of Tampa, as well as the City of Young. And I just send this here to answer any questions.
Jacinda, anything you would like to add?
No, thank you, Commissioner.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
As we move forward on this, is there any criteria involved on selecting residents that we end up helping our own local folks first compared to outsiders that have just recently moved here from outside of our area to take advantage of our compassion?
Commissioner Edwards, there aren't any restrictions in terms of location, just on that homeless and senior status.
Well, what I'm wondering about is we get folks that are very proficient about obtaining assistance from government entities. And if they come here from, I'm just going to use, I'll say Kansas City. If they come here is there any type of requirement at all that they have been a resident of our community so that we can end up helping local folks from our community at least first and not allowing others to get to the head of the line because they know how to manipulate the system? Is there any process in place to help us make a determination that we're helping our own local folks first?
Yeah, so Lehigh will select the tenants to be placed in the units once the development is built. And again, you know, they don't have any residency restrictions in terms of the amount of time that a person has to have spent in Thurston County. They will look again at that low income status and homeless senior status when they place.
And who's gonna be making that selection once this building is complete?
Lehigh.
And that consists of who?
Yeah, so Low Income Housing Institute is the developer and they are also the owner of the building. So they will make the selection of who is placed into their units that they construct and they operate.
And is that a private entity? Is it a nonprofit? And if it's a nonprofit, it consists of membership from where?
Yes, they are. Sorry, they are a nonprofit. Yes, they are Seattle-based, but they work throughout our state.
And can I jump in just into my understanding would be Lehigh would also place people using our coordinated entry system. Is that correct?
Yeah, they'll be using coordinated entry. You know, there may be other referrals that also come in that are outside of coordinated entry, but they will be looking, you know, primarily locally. There aren't any residency requirements though.
But our coordinated entry system is based on people who go through that process locally. There's criteria for being placed on coordinated entry, and we're looking at those who are most vulnerable, who've been here. There's other criteria in terms of who've also been on that list the longest. So people who've been in our community the longest would be prioritized over newer residents if they have a higher vulnerability score. So based on the criteria that Lehigh uses. So there is working through our local coordinated entry system.
Do we have a breakdown of that $1.7 million as far as who's contributing what?
Yeah. So
County manager's got something, sounds like.
I believe, the CAAC has authorized 229,000. City of Olympia has authorized 300,000. And the county is 1,115,540. Those are the amounts the region is contributing.
And the county's portion of that is coming from that,
Yeah, 14. There's no general fund.
no general.
No general fund.
So it's dedicated money, right?
Yes, sir.
That can't be spent to
No,
buy
you-
fire trucks or police
No,
cars.
we cannot use for general government. Thank you.
Okay.
So would you like to keep this item on? This
Yeah, I
item?
think so. I want to keep that on.
Okay.
I can always raise my concerns later at a later date. There'll be other opportunities.
Oh, plenty.
Okay, item 8B, approve rent assistance contract amendment with Washington State Department of Commerce. Are we getting more money?
Yes, and thank you, Madam Chair. The items 3, 8B, and 8C are related. Yes, we're getting additional money. I briefly brought to the board's attention a couple of weeks ago. It's because we have been extremely effective, more so than other jurisdictions across the state, in distributing rental assistance to those residents in Thurston County who are in need. And as no other counties have not been as successful as Thurston County, so the Department of Commerce has reached out to Thurston County to see if we have capacity to contribute, to continue to provide the services. We certainly can use the money because the need continues to be out there in our community. So item 3.8B is to amend the contract with the Washington State Department of Commerce to receive an additional $2,231,623. In item 8C is concurrent to that, is where we'll be amending the contract that we have with Gioco Inc., also known as Life Stories, to increase the amount for help for them to be continuing to help us on the rental assistance program. Good news on both items, and we'll continue to raise our hand. If they need be to the state, they will continue to be effective in distributing these funds to those Thurston County residents in need. And Tom is here to elaborate on this.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Tom, this is great news, right? I know that we had a wait list, right? As people have been submitting applications and, we didn't have the funds to cover all of the people who applied. With this additional funds, can we make it through that wait list and accept new applications, or are we still going to be slowly making our way through that wait list?
Yes, thank you for that question. So with these funds, we will able to fully make it through that wait list. So this funds will ensure that we fund everyone who's submitted an application within kind of the deadlines. There will be some remaining funds. However, we are not going to be opening this up to the general public just because there's not sufficient funds. We are working with our Dispute Resolution Center. They had 650 people who received eviction notices in October. So we're prioritizing the remaining funds, any remaining funds of this amount for those folks who are in contact with the Dispute Resolution Center. They will be receiving an email inviting them to submit an application. One of the elements of these funds is these funds must be spent by December 29th of this year. And they cannot be used to pay for rent past December 29th of this year. So we're working with Live Stories to combine these funds with some other rent assistance funds we received from the state that can pay future months' rent. So this is the first round of rental assistance we received from Treasury. There's a reallocation that had a deadline for the end of 2022. Some of the other funds have a longer deadline. So we're mixing and matching funds to spend them as quickly as possible. So, but anyway, so these funds we will be opening up to folks who are currently working with Dispute Resolution Center, but not to the general public.
Okay, and then those who had applied previously but weren't able to get through that.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think I have any additional questions. And then December 29th is deadline, and can pay for rent afterwards.
I do have one question.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
After December 29th and there's some funding left, what happens?
So after December 29th, there will be a modest amount of rent assistance funding remaining. This is kind of the ERAP money we received from the state. We anticipate between $500,000 and $1 million remaining. We will be spending that out in January. It gets a little complicated, but there's certain resources we can't, certain applications we won't be able to fund with this money. So we'll be looking to fund those kind of future months of rent with that ERAP. So the TRAP, ERAP programs are winding down. There is a new permanent rent assistance program. We will be coming to you in the coming weeks under the state, the House Bill 1277 funding, which is a new document recording fee. So we have an application into the Department of Commerce. We're expecting a contract from the Department of Commerce very soon. We'll be bringing that forward to you in a couple of weeks. That will be a permanent rent assistance program going forward. That will be implemented. It'll be more narrowly targeted. The income criteria will be stricter than this funding. It's only about $2 million, a little over $2 million a year, but that will be an ongoing rent assistance program that will be starting up in early 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to Public Works, item 9A, ordinance to adopt the amended speed limit schedule for various county roads.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up to the public hearing the board held on October 4, 2022, where you received public testimony related to 8 locations of county roadways for you to consider changing the speed limits. You had a follow-up briefing related to this public hearing a couple of weeks ago, and I believe the board, county commissioners provide direction to bring this proposal for final approval as presented by staff. I don't recall the board would like to have any deviations from their proposal, but certainly you're in the position to do so if you'd like to.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
No questions for me. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 9B, set a public hearing to update Thurston County water and sewer rates.
Yeah, this related to the overall public hearings for the budget, and this particular request is for you to set the public hearing specifically related to the revenue component on December 6th, 2022 at 5 in the afternoon. It's specifically related to the rate increases for water and sewer utilities. The board had a couple of briefings related to this, where you will be receiving public testimony related to increases of 5% on water rates and 42.5% in sewer rates on the Boston Harbor utilities, 5% in water and sewer rates for Thomaston utilities, and 5% sewer rates for customers of Olympic View utility. This has been discussed with the members of that community members on those utilities. And again, this is the next step where you are required to have a public hearing related to any particular new revenue that you might be considering. Tim?
Good morning, Commissioners. Very good overview. I would just add that there's a fairly robust communication and outreach plan for these recommended increases that includes a web page and utility bill inserts that would go out to each ratepayer.
Thank you. Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I take it this coincides with other activities on December 6th?
Yeah, on December 6th at 5 in the afternoon, that is specifically related to the revenue, as Nicole Martinez explained.
Thank you.
So it's all coordinated as a coordinated effort. Thank you, sir.
No questions for me. Thank you. And we have our standing item. We do have a public hearing at 3:30. And it is Emergency Housing Ordinance Docket Item A-24. And we will not be having an action item today. There's been a request to have.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I know that in the agenda, you have 2 potential action items. One is to move the public hearing. In normal circumstances, depending on the public testimony you might receive, you may consider approving the ordinance. I will be recommending not take the second action, only to close the public hearing, and I will bring this matter on November 22nd for you to consider taking an action on the permanent proposal of docket item 824. So again, this afternoon is on the agenda, but I will be recommending not to take in the second action.
Okay. Questions?
No questions.
Okay. Then, after that public hearing, Leah, anything you would like to add?
No, thank you. He did an excellent summary.
After that, we will have a Board of Health 4:30 meeting. That will conclude our agenda for today. We do have a Board of Health meeting. So So next on our agenda is the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of November 15th. We are canceling that meeting because all three commissioners will be attending the County Leaders Conference in Renton for the Washington State Association of Counties. Next is the review of the Board of Health draft agenda. We did review this last week. I will ask Kurt if there's anything, I mean, unless,
That's fine.
So since Commissioner Mansell will not be in attendance.
You didn't hear me complaining.
So Commissioner Edwards as the chair.
yeah, so I was like,
Will be managing the agenda this afternoon, so.
Okay, we can do this real quick.
okay, Vice Chair, go ahead.
Okay, this afternoon at 4:30, we'll call the meeting to order. And we will approve an agenda at that time. And then there will be an opportunity for the public to address the board. There will be 4 minutes allowed unless there's a big crowd. If there's a big crowd, then it'll be 3 minutes. Anything known to the county manager or my seatmates that might be taking place on that particular issue?
Not that I know of, sir.
Okay. Then we'll have number 3, department items. And Kurt is here, so could you go over quickly what those items might be, Kurt?
Sure. Kurt Harnigan, Interim Director of Public Health and Social Services. The first one on department items, number 3, we're going to give an overview of the department. I will go through a number of slides, but I will make it brief as we go and talk about the high-level areas within public health and the services that we provide to the community. So for the entire Board of Health, including the new members. And then item 4, that will be the resolution setting the regular Board of Health meeting dates. I believe that is already, the draft has already been circulated. And then item 5 under department items, Board of Health chair designation, which members will select a chair, and then a vice chair as well under item 6. And then wrapping it up, Board of Health meeting topics. We will discuss potential topics for future Board of Health agendas and meetings down the road. And then with that, we'll have a wrap up of the health officer's report. And then that should conclude the agenda.
Okay, any questions?
No, sir.
I will say that individuals on the Board of Health, the new individuals, I believe there's 4 new individuals, will be able to bring up their issues as far as potential items at that time. I think that's Spain. Anyway, I believe that will conclude the Board of Health activities. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Back to you, ma'am.
And again, just a reminder that we'll be bringing a proposal to bring the infectious disease monthly update to the Board of Health, no longer to the Board of County Commissioners.
Yes.
And I think that's a good decision, right? We were doing it
Who's
beforehand.
buzzing?
I don't know who's that is.
Are you buzzing? Kurt?
But I missed the question. Can you restate that?
If your phone was buzzing.
I heard some buzzing.
What was that?
It's all good.
Okay, let's go ahead. It's 10:27. Let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break, and then we will start again with proclamations and awards. You're live. And we are back from break. It is 10:50 a.m. And we are picking up with proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions. And I'll pass it to Clerk of the Board, Jamie Caldwell.
Good morning. Outside of today's proclamation that's already been reviewed, I don't really have any further updates. For boards and commissions, I've included the standing applications for the Housing Authority. I should have an appointment recommendation from the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board after their next meeting on the 17th. I did receive one reappointment request from the City of Lacey on behalf of Ken Parsons as the Thurston County representative on the Capital Area Regional Public Facilities District Board. I have a little kind of further background email from that gal because I hadn't heard of it yet myself that I can get distributed to you. But outside of those, that's all I have.
Okay, so questions, comments?
We got all our appointments and stuff done now. Didn't we get finally caught up?
I think there's a couple of questions authority, but
I thought we had that done.
No,
We didn't get there yet.
No.
Okay, well, that's fine.
I'm
We
trying
don't
to
need to do it today.
get a hold of Mr. McClellan, and I haven't had much luck on it. And that's like the only person I need to speak to, and I wanna,
Do you want a phone number for him?
that would be great, because I would like to speak with all of them, right? And since he's seeking reappointment, I would like to speak with him. But I haven't been able to get a hold of him, and I know that since Commissioner Mentzer's not here, that gives me a little bit more time. But maybe if we'll pass that number to Romero.
I think the county manager will have that number before long.
And then I can set up a conversation with him. Okay, so we're waiting for the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board, the Capital Area Regional Public Facilities District.
that is as you may recall, it's a district that was formed really to do and manage two big projects. Is the Children's Museum downtown and the
Oh, okay,
and
yeah, I
the
remember
regional athletic complex, the BRAC in Lacey. So this appointment is really is procedural for you to consider. There is no much, with all the respect, to do. This is the Lacey's recommendation, which they have that option.
Great. So,
Would you concurrence, we'll bring this for your consideration for the 22nd? Or you want to wait for Commissioner Mentions?
yeah, just so he can review the application and but let's go ahead and add it to the agenda, that way there's,
You can always take it out on that day.
and then we can take it out that day. How do you feel on that?
'Cause I'm running short of board meetings because the next week is canceled for the conference. The 22nd, you will hold that meeting. There's a 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the 4th. Then the 29th, after the Thanksgiving holiday, that meeting has been canceled. The following is the public hearings, December 5th and 6th. So December 13th is the last meeting, and that will be the hefty meeting that you will have. Well, actually, the last meeting is on the 16th, Friday, where you will be approving the budget.
Budget, okay. Okay. Any questions? Okay, PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. I have no updates for you this morning.
Okay. So legislative update, we had a discussion about this last week. And so here's kind of.
Yeah, what I think there is a couple of suggested changes that are going to be brought to your attention today. Did have a chance to watch the conversation the board had last week. And we'll see is, you will not see in this draft is the judicial impact fees.
That's what I was writing down.
And the judicial impact fees, we checked with the OAC, and that is included on the base budget. And it has been submitted to the governor.
Okay.
So I was suggesting that perhaps we need to watch, obviously, if need be, but at this point, adding that to the legislative agenda may not be prudent at this point since it's already included on the base budget. So that's the reason why my recommendation was to include it. I believe the IT courts is the language is here mirrors what the WASAC language is, so it's right there for your consideration. The veterans levy as well as the mental health is the language as we have worked on the last year. And the Tenino Agricultural Park and agricultural supply issues. My recommendation at this point is to just leave it as the Tenino Agricultural Park, because the agricultural supply issues, I believe the conversation was at the meat processing plant. And that, I believe, is going to be next year's a little more tangible as to what the request is, what is the ask. Because on their agricultural supply issues, I didn't have anything tangible to ask the legislature. So on the agricultural park, what you have in here, the language, I have worked with Jenica and the EDC, and I just had a revised language this morning. And we're gonna be requesting for a capital investment of $2 million to bring the phase 2. Okay, so I will provide a revised language on this, and then I will distribute this version for you to consider, but I will ask you to give me your feedback by the end of this Friday, because I'd like to finalize that, okay? And some of the items they will need to follow, I believe, is the county flexibility, the layoff. This is just, more of a conversation in the Washington WASAC legislative agenda. I know you had a discussion related to the Deschutes Watershed Council. I don't know what the tangible request was at this point, which is when it did not make it to the point, but if you like, I can probably add that on the bottom.
So I think that would be.
I'm running out of space.
So.
Because the idea is to have a single page.
But I'm wondering why the loft plan made it on there, since it was the lowest scoring one with only 4 points. With the Deschutes Watershed Council, the seed money, I believe Commissioner Menser will be able to, because he's the one who brought this forward, and he knew kind of like, with his I believe he said that, it was on their legislative priorities and would be good for us to just support. But I'm not sure who is running it, so maybe having that conversation with him on kind of who's in charge of it, and then.
So that's absolutely fine. I can bring the Deschutes Watershed and replace it by the layoff. I think it's more, the layoff is more complex, as you probably had the discussion. And so I will replace that and I'll give you a copy for you review with revised language. Will that work? And related to the animal services, I think there's something for next year. I'm working with Deborah Manguia to have some options for the board. So those are I'll work with Megan to make those changes, and I will hopefully send you via email the last final draft for you to review it, so we can finalize that this week.
Perfect.
So the question is, I think, do you like to have a legislative breakfast where we can introduce this particular legislative agenda to the legislators? We can attempt to organize that, but I think with all the move and everything else,
I think it's too early to try and do that, because we don't know what this election is gonna produce either. Let's wait until we get through the election process. I don't know how many close races there are, or any of that. At this point, we just don't know.
Would that be something to further discussion? Thank you.
I do have a follow-up kind of involved with this. As we move forward on the processing plant, I guess, we all have different names for it. Anyway, as we move forward on that, currently we're talking about Pierce, Lewis, and Thurston. Why couldn't we include Grays Harbor and Mason as kind of a geographical area served. And because anytime you have more groups getting together trying to solve the problem, you have a better possibility of coming to a solution. So
the only two counties who participate financially in this study is Thurston and
I
Pierce.
know, but as we move forward, especially we're gonna be asking for more money as time goes on. It would just be that much better if we could get some kind of coordinated effort for that geographical area. And we've got the location, it's centrally located. It'll help everybody. And then we've got farm bureaus and ag committees and different groups, conservation districts that, from all those entities that could also participate. So, I don't know, I wanna get to the end and solve the problem at some
I
point.
can probably ask Jenica to see if they can provide suggestions on the RFP to expand the study area, to include those counties.
I mean, I just wonder.
But I don't know that will increase the cost.
I don't know.
Well.
Okay, but I mean, at least talk to somebody
Yeah,
from those jurisdictions, I'm not saying.
If it's just a matter of adding the area, which probably makes sense to me, without increasing the cost.
Yeah, because it's gonna serve those areas anyway.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I don't know, just,
Yeah, I'll follow up.
I think it's just worth looking at. It'll help us get to the
So you would
goal
like
line.
to add Mason and Grace Harbor?
Yeah, I mean, just because they're, and I think they're already in one of our, Homeland Security areas or something like that. Already they're in there, so it isn't a stretch.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item, which is Hopkins Drainage District number 2. Treasurer Jeff Gadman.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. As a matter of framing the whole conversation, and then at the end, I will provide my recommendation for the board, next steps. Thank you, County Treasurer Gadman, to join us this morning. So a little bit of background. The Hopkins Drainage District number 2 took a couple of legislative actions within their context of the legislative authority of the district to include assessment to properties located outside of the original boundaries of the district, which that pretty much encompassed close to 600 properties within the development called the Preserve. The Preserve development has been in the works for the last 15 years and is entirely included on the municipal boundaries of the city of Tumwater. The result of this conversation, as a result of the actions the Hopkins Drainage District is in assessing those properties, and the tune of yearly $300,000. You received some written and public testimony for the board to consider suspending the operations of the Hopkins District as a result of that. You held a public hearing on October 18th where you received public testimony related to that particular action the board might be considering. So leading to that, there were 3 tracks that were developing related to this particular matter. In the track, the Hopkins Drainage District took the legislative actions to incorporate those properties of the preserve in assessing overall $300,000 across all those properties. That was submitted to the county treasurer, and I believe the county treasurer had the obligation to impose his assessments as he imposed the assessments on many other junior districts. On that track, the city of Tumwater on October 4th took an action where they took all those properties within the preserve and took out of that assessment as well. So that resolution was submitted to the county treasurer as well. And so that's track number one. I'm gonna come back to as to the next steps. The other track that developed is the members of the preserve secure their own legal counsel, and that legal counsel filed a suit in Superior Court related to the actions of the Hopkins Drainage District. That particular legal action has two elements, at least from my humble point of view. One is procedural, related to the OPMA, and the second is related to substantive elements, whether they have the authority to impose that without showing a public benefit. In the third track, you were considering was the suspended the operations of the Hopkins Drainage District. So let me begin with that track. Under your consideration, by you considering taking the operations of the Hopkins Drainage District, but the sheer action of you taking that particular legislative action, it does not give you the authority to rescind any of the resolutions the Hopkins District did or passed, because you suspended just the operations. And by doing so, you will take, the county will take responsibility for the maintenance and operations of the district. On the second track, the litigation related to the actions of the Hopkins District, that's gonna take some time, and I don't know when that is gonna be before the courts. Going back to the track of the county treasurer, as a result of the county treasurer receiving that resolution by the city of Tumwater, the county treasurer consulted with legal counsel, and the result of that is he will not be able to assess those properties as stated in the original resolution. The county treasurer submitted a written response to the Hopkins Drainage District last week, stating that he will need a revised resolution by the Hopkins Drainage District, excluding the properties within the boundaries of the city of Tumwater. And the deadline, I believe, is December 10th, in order for you to implement those assessments. So at that point, you'd like to elaborate on that, County Treasurer?
No, you've covered it very, very well, but just to get some of the mechanical process of what I do or where my role is in this. So the special purpose districts that get formed in special assessment districts are legally entitled to create assessment rolls. And they can send out those assessments to property owners by any legal means possible. They can mail their own individual envelopes. There's a provision in the law that allows them to partner with the county treasurer and have these assessments added onto the property tax statement. And most special purpose districts will utilize that function because it's cheaper for them than them doing it themselves. I don't have any role in creating the assessment rolls. It is purely on the responsibility of the special purpose districts. So that's why I kicked it back to the Hopkins Drainage District Commissioners. It's up to them to obtain or to submit a revised assessment roll for 2023 if they so choose. I do have a question.
Go ahead, sir.
And that is yet to be determined by the court if or not that new assessment area is valid?
So the legal opinion that I've got is that the ordinance that the city of Tumwater passed, which carves those properties in their city boundaries out of the drainage district, is a valid ordinance that was passed. It hasn't been tested in the courts. So based on the legal opinion that I received from the prosecuting attorney, I can't process an assessment roll that includes those parcels.
Yeah, it just hasn't been determined yet with the court, right? I mean, they're gonna.
No, because the legal track that I just explained, they preserve as well as the city of Tumwater filed against the Hopkins district.
Right.
Does not include this action by the city council. That's not part of the litigation.
Okay, okay. In other words, but are we ready to?
Yeah, my recommendation
Yeah,
at this point is considering what the county treasurer's track is doing, that is within his purview, obviously, considering the legal action they're spending, be heard by the court. My recommendation for the board is to do nothing at this point. Not to say A or nay, it's just not at this point, just to hold any particular actions related to the suspension of the operations of Hopkins districts and see where it goes from this point. That's my recommendation to you.
So when are we gonna be making that decision?
My
Officially?
recommendation is today.
Oh, okay.
I know, I mean, I can bring this item back if
Do
you
you
want
want
to
it
a
at
second.
2, are you planning on 2 o'clock today?
No,
at a
no,
meeting, or
there is no.
Right now?
There is no legislative action that
Are you looking for a couple
I'm
thumbs up?
that's my recommendation for you to do nothing. And if you like to do something, let me know.
Oh, I get it, we don't have to do it. Okay,
So my
got it.
recommendation is do nothing.
The government ought to be pretty good at doing nothing.
Thank you, Treasurer. Okay.
Good luck.
All right, thank you. Well, I mean, it's in
Have
your
fun.
hands now. They will submit a revised roll or they won't.
Well, more to come,
Yet to be seen.
more to come on the whole thing, it sounds like to me, with court action and such.
Thank you so much.
All right, enjoy your Tuesday, everybody.
Thank you, Jeff. Oh, thank you, County Treasurer.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, it is 11:11, and do we have other commissioner items?
Okay, I guess I already brought up the Mason and Grays Harbor issue. So that was gonna be one of those. My other issue is I'm not there yet on the RCW that directs the county to keep offices for the elected officials at the courthouse. The county seat thing seems to be addressed through legal. Not that I agree with it, but it seems to be addressed. I don't see that we've had any conclusion on the law, the RCW, and I can give you the number here if I needed to, that requires the county to provide offices to the elected officers. It's a pretty simple, short RCW at the county courthouse. So I haven't got clarification yet. Now, we can still probably move ahead on a 2-to-1 vote, but I still object to not having that certainty. So is legal around at our meeting here, or?
She just joined. I asked her to join us because I was expecting this conversation will occur. Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Yes,
Thank you. So
I can hear.
this particular RCW, and I believe that has been addressed by legal counsel in many executive sessions in the past, Commissioner.
The one about office space?
Right.
Well, that's what my question is.
Yeah, and I believe Elizabeth can attest it is a non-issue. Several counties has satellite offices within the county seat, outside of the courthouse. And you can probably we can go look around in many counties in the state. So I believe there is a non-issue related to this particular claim. But I would like Elizabeth to reiterate my statement, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner. This is a statute, one of many statutes under Title 36. And if you peruse Title 36 and all the different statutes touching on separately elected officials, the Board of County Commissioners, and this particular statute, what you're going to see is that the legislature often interchanges courthouse for county seat. So when I've talked to other attorneys about this particular statute, the consensus was it's a non-issue because what the statute's really speaking to is the county seat, which I have addressed in a previous written memorandum of why, in particular, the atrium is consistent with the statutory requirement that the county officers are located within the existing boundaries of the county seat as interpreted by the Supreme Court a few years back. And I think I did give you an analysis of that. And what was interesting when I was doing that analysis was the parties that were involved in briefing the court, in particular, the Attorney General's office. And the Attorney General's office, because it recognized that state offices are also subject to similar requirement as county in terms of a county seat. And for the state capital, that too is the city of Olympia. And as you know, elected state officials are outside of the Capitol campus. And for these reasons, I believe the Attorney General argued to the Supreme Court that the boundaries of the county seat should be the existing boundaries of city of Olympia. So I have no concerns about that particular statute. The court's always going to look at an individual statute in the context of the chapter, the title that one particular statute comes up with. And
okay.
So I personally don't have a concern about the length, about that particular statute and the location of the elected officials at the atrium.
So we're referring to RCW 3616-090. Is that correct?
That's one statute.
That's the statute.
If you want to look at others.
About office space. I mean, that's, I agree. We've kind of already covered the county seat issue. I guess my concern is that it appears in reading that RCW, and the RCW is pretty simple. It says the boards of county commissioners of several counties of the state shall provide a suitable furnished office for each of the county officers in their respective courthouses and may provide additional offices elsewhere in the officers or for the officers at the board's discretion. And I think even when it comes to the state issues, all those elected officers of the state still have their main offices here at the Capitol of Olympia, and then they have satellite offices elsewhere. And I think these other jurisdictions, that's allowed. Matter of fact, that was adjusted, I think, in 2009 is the last change that I see here that expanded so that you could have offices elsewhere. I just don't see where that gives that issue or that law the authority to just disregard this RCW. That's my concern. So you're saying we can disregard this RCW and we're not going to be in any sort of jeopardy?
I don't think we're disregarding that statute. I think we're reading it consistently with the other statutes that put requirements on the elected officials and yourself included. For example, and the interpretation of harmonizing that statute with the other statutes, because like I said, the legislature uses the county seat term and courthouse term interchangeably. And we do have a clear definition of what the county seat is. There is no definition of the courthouse either in any of the statutes themselves or in case law. So I'm relying on the interpretation of county seat, which is used more frequently when it comes to other elected officials and when it comes to the duties of the county commissioners. For example, where the county commissioners are supposed to have their regular meetings, it's not at the courthouse, it's at the county seat. So when you look at all these statutes together and have the interchange county seat, some elected officials are required to have their office at the county seat, others are required to have them at the courthouse. So how do you harmonize those two terms? They're the same term. And the definition of county seat, as we've already described, is the current boundaries of Olympia. I mean, you can take any statute out of context and look at it differently, but what the courts do is they harmonize statutes within the chapter or title that they're under.
Okay, so just as long as you're advising us that we're okay going ahead under, even though we're not gonna maintain offices here, that's my concern. So, is that what I'm hearing
Yes.
from you, that we're good to go?
I think you're consistent with the different statutes at play. You have another statute where you're responsible to build courthouses, other facilities, and other buildings as needed for the county officers. It doesn't limit it to a courthouse. You could have other buildings. So you have to look at the whole scheme of things to see what makes sense. And in our day and age, it certainly makes sense that we're going to have other buildings besides a building where the court operations are, because of the size of the county and the growth of the county. So I'm comfortable. This is my advice to you. And I think it's consistent with the most recent Supreme Court case.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. That was my issue.
I don't have a.
Thank you, counsel.
You're welcome.
I don't have any issues. It's 11:22, we got the gift of time.
See you at 2.
See you at
Till
2.
2 o'clock.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Okay.